All right, so David Njoku got signed to a new deal, and for whatever reason, the internet, the Browns internet at least, lost their mind. Like, absolutely lost their mind of what I felt like was a pretty standard risk-free deal. But apparently, other people thought that this deal was like panic worthy. I don't know. Maybe it's misinformation. Maybe it's people just looking at the headline and seeing the big number and freaking out. Which, by the way, guys, when these contracts come out, we have to stop freaking out about the big number, right? Unless it's like a fully guaranteed contract, you have to stop freaking out about the big number. Here is why. Yeah, that big number is going to be cool. Yeah, that big number is going to have a lot of like incentives in it. Also, the problem with freaking out about the big number at the end of the day is NFL contracts are really, if you're not a quarterback or a franchise level player like a Myles Garrett, your contract's really only 2 years. So the first 2 years of that deal, really the only thing that matters. But when they report the deal, they show you all the money throughout the 5 or 4 year deal, right? That ain't really the deal. The most times after that second year of that deal, the contract either gets restructured, renegotiated, or an extension. So the big number that everybody freaks out about and has their hot takes about doesn't really matter. Now, the David Njoku one, people are freaking out about. And I'm like, this really doesn't matter because here is the basic structure of this contract. Now, again, this is Pro Football Talk. I know a lot of y'all feel some type of way about Pro Football Talk right now, but they are reporting facts when it comes to this, right? The contract breaks down like this. There is a $11 million signing bonus, which means that his base salary is only going to be $1 million for this year. So again, that's another way the cap is going to go lower. So the Browns aren't even eating up that much cap space this year. So the Browns actually, instead of if they would have gave him a franchise tag, they would have been on the hook for $11 million this year, and they would have ate that cap space. Now they're not eating that cap space this year. They're going to have more money to, this is where the Davion Clowney money probably came from and everything else, right? The 2023 base salary is going to be $4.5 million, fully guaranteed. And then we get to the last 2 years of the deal where the money balloons, right? This is where the money gets crazy. Okay, he gets a 2023 option bonus of $8 million guaranteed for injury at signing, fully guaranteed March of 2023. So that's a roster bonus. So basically, you're on the hook with David Njoku for about $12 million next year, which is about market value for a tight end, a starting tight end in the NFL now. It's definitely going to get to market value within a couple of years because this is that value of tight end is inflating right now. So 2022, you're only on the cap hit for $1 million. And I'm going to be real with you. I don't care how much money he gets that doesn't go against the cap because there's no reason for me to be watching his pockets like that, right? Like, if it ain't going to affect the cap, then I don't care how much he gets. Like, that $11 million he gets in that signing bonus, free money, man. Do what you want with that. Why would I have an opinion over that, right? Like, I ain't tripping over that, and I'm definitely not going to use that against you. You're only on the cap for $1 million this year, so that's really all I care about. Next year, he'll be on the cap for, 4.5, fully guaranteed, and then he gets a roster bonus if he's still on the roster of $8 million. So let's say they want to keep David Njoku in 2023, it's $12 million. If they don't want to keep David Njoku, then they eat $4 million. Okay, so let's say David is so terrible this year, you don't want to keep him. You only lose $4 million when it comes to the salary cap, which is not that big of a hit. Remember, Odell was like a $12 million salary cap hit. So we get to 2024, right? And this is where the number starts to inflate. But this is after an option year, right? So 2024 base salary is 13, 3 of which is guaranteed at signing, and the $3 million becomes guaranteed in 2023. Which means that this is an option year. If they feel like that is a deal to have David Njoku on the roster for $15-16 million, they will take it. But here's the thing. We're never going to get to this point in this contract. You see 2024, this contract is not going to get to that point because here's the two scenarios that can happen. Either David Njoku is not going to be worth $16 million and that contract either gets restructured or released and you take no cap hit. Because by that point, all the guarantees are out because the only guarantees are the signing bonuses for the roster. So either that happens or David Njoku is either worth $16 million or worth more than $16 million, in which David Njoku would be beneficial for both him and the Cleveland Browns to extend that contract, push some more money down the line, and move on with it, right? So the numbers that everybody's freaking out about this contract, right? It's the big numbers, right? Was it $45-50 million when you all put it together? And if you average it out, it comes to like some ridiculous average. That number is what everybody's freaking out about. But most of that number comes after 2023, which means that that's not going to show up. And what I mean by not going to show up is either they're just going to do the team option and let him go because he's not worth the money, or they're going to find a way to keep him, and it would be beneficial for David Njoku to restructure that contract because maybe he can get more guaranteed money because at that point of the contract, he's pretty much out of guaranteed money, and he would want more guaranteed money by 2024, and that contract will get re-extended or restructured or whatever you want to call it, and it would benefit the Browns because it would lower his cap hit to just give him more guaranteed money. So I ask you guys a question knowing this. Why are we freaking out about this? Why is there such a debate about whether David Njoku was worth this money or not when the money wasn't even that big? Like, one, you got it. Like, that's also another thing. This is not happening at the beginning of free agency. This is happening right before, like, training camp starts, which means that you weren't going to sign a big-ticket free agent anyways, and even if that's the case, you just made your life easier by doing that because now you have, an extra $10 million in salary cap space because you kicked most of this in the signing bonus for year one. This sounds like a win-win deal to me, right? For David Njoku, you get more guaranteed money up front than you would have with the franchise tag. You get a little bit of security because you have that option of being brought back next year. You know you're going to get 4.5 guaranteed no matter what happens to you next year. But also, if you're playing decent, you will also get that other $8 million in March, which means that you'll be sitting pretty for the next couple of years with the ability to be flexible and renegotiate your deal after 2024 to get what you're worth. So it makes sense for David Njoku. For those exact same reasons, it makes sense for the Cleveland Browns because you save some cap space this year. You have an option if he's not worth it next year, but you have first rights on him. He's not just going to be an unrestricted free agent. You have first rights on him to secure him if he is worth that money. If not, you have an easy out. And you have the opportunity come 2024 to restructure while he's still under contract technically. Where's this a bad deal? Where is this overpaying? And then let's talk about the overpaying element of this, right? Because people look at David Njoku's Wikipedia or whatever they look at, and they go, oh, well, he's been underperforming. He's a bum or whatever people say about David Njoku at this point. And you guys know, if you followed me over the last few years, I have been critical of David Njoku. I've not been like a David Njoku cheerleader by any means, but I have to admit that he has improved over the last couple of years over the things that bugged me about David Njoku. What are the things that bugged me about David Njoku? The inconsistent catching of the football, right? You look here in 2017, 53.3 catch percentage, 63.6, 50% in 2019, although he was pretty much injured that whole year. And if we look at his drop percentages, they're the same story, right? Over those first 3 years, he was very inconsistent with this, right? Let's go to 2018. He had a 6.8. 2019 was abysmal, but he didn't play that much. He had 2 drops in 2019, and he played like 4 games, 1 start. 2020 comes around, he had 1 drop. He played in 13 games, started in 5. 2021 comes around, He played in 16 games, started in 11, only had 2 drops. These are elite drop percentages. David Njoku does not have the drop problem anymore. It's been 2 years, right? He's been pretty good at this for 2 years. It wasn't just in the contract year, well, he's been in the contract year the last 2 years, but he's still in the contract year essentially with this new deal because it's not really what people think it is. It's not like this long-term, lock them up long-term deal. It's just kind of a, hey, let's get something done so you can come to camp kind of deal and make everybody happy. But yeah, David Njoku, I mean, the drops aren't there, right? He has been a big playmaker. Well, not a big playmaker, but he's been one of those guys who has been able to create explosive plays down the field. And also, if you're the Cleveland Browns, what you gonna do? Let David Njoku sit out for the entire camp, have him take up $11 million more than he would have if he would have signed this deal, have him be frustrated, and have him be your only tight end option? Like, I don't even think this deal is about projecting how good he will be with Deshaun Watson or how much more improvement he will show with Deshaun Watson as much as it is, it just made sense for both sides to make this deal. You know what I mean? And then you add in the factor that David Njoku could take a ridiculous leap with better quarterback play. Now, I don't anticipate him becoming Travis Kelce or anything like that. I think he'll probably have around 700 yards, probably have around 6 to 8 touchdowns, and I think that's fine. As long as he doesn't regress as a blocker, I think that's fine. Also, David Njoku's been an incredible blocker over the last few years. That's another thing that hasn't been talked about enough. But David Njoku has really made strides as a blocker. I might have to do a film breakdown of that eventually, right? So you guys see what I'm talking about when it comes to his pass blocking. I know Jake Burns over at the OBR has done a lot of great work on David Njoku's improvement in that area. But that's another thing in which David Njoku does well. And when you can block well, if you can get 700 yards and 8 touchdowns and be a red zone threat, that's great. That's what you want out of a tight end. I know we see Travis Kelce, we see Mark Andrews, and we think tight ends now should get 1,200 yards and all that. But those are, rare dudes. David Njoku, I'm happy with 750 and 6 to 8 because I know right now, if you look at it, you're like, oh, well, he might be at the top of the NFL as far as how much money he's getting this year. But trust me, that number's going to come down, right? Mark Andrews is going to get his deal restructured probably next offseason, and that number's going to come down. Travis Kelce's going to get a ridiculous deal in free agency as an old man, and that's going to come down. Like, it's all right. This is the most... I don't understand. And look, I'm going to show you David Njoku's PFF real quick. Don't snitch on me. But look at the blocking has been improved. He had 3 bad games of blocking, but everything else was in green. That's how you know he's improved as a blocker this year. He's been excellent. So, yeah. I saw this news come down, and I thought nothing of it. I was like, yeah, that makes sense for David. That makes sense for the Browns. This isn't controversial, but man, was this controversial over the weekend. People having hot takes left and right over this Njoku deal when there's no reason for this to be a big deal. Like if you think it's too much money, okay, fair, but it's not like you're stuck in money for long term. You can get out of this money next year if you really wanted to, if you're the Cleveland Browns. But even if that's the case, who cares? How much does the salary cap matter at this point in the offseason? Because you're at where you're supposed to spend for the salary cap. So it does not matter if you overpay for this year. If you think you're overpaying for next year, fair point, but we can see if that's the case after this season, right? And even then, you can restructure, you can get out of that deal if you want. And you can also, live with the money that you're going to give him, which isn't that much money for next year. So if you think that's the case, okay, but what's the big deal? If it's too much money this year, what does it matter? We're not utilizing 100% of the salary cap. We're not even close to 100% utilization of the salary cap at this point. It's not like the Browns are cap struck this year. So it doesn't matter if he's getting overpaid this year. It's not a long-term deal. As much as people want to make it sound like it is really not a long-term deal. It's maybe we might get to year 3 of this contract, but more than likely we're going to both want to renegotiate this at that point. This still makes sense. I don't know why people are freaking out about it. It's not like you're stuck with that money forever. It's not like you guaranteed him the whole contract. Like, honestly, and I'm not even concerned about the Denzel Ward deal, but the Denzel Ward deal would be a little bit more nerve-wracking than the David Njoku deal. Because almost all of that, like 70% of that contract is guaranteed. So you know that you're going to have to live with that contract, win, lose, or draw with Denzel Ward. With David Njoku, the guarantees are in the first 2 years. You know what I mean? So it don't matter. So it's not really like it's going to ruin your cap for long term. And also, can we just talk about how the Browns have re-signed everybody at this point? They have Deshaun Watson under contract long term. They have both the guards under contract long term. They have Amari Cooper under contract long term. They have the rest of the wide receivers on rookie deals. They have the rest of the offensive line on rookie deals. They have Kareem Hunt throughout this year. They have Nick Chubb throughout the next couple of years. And they have like 5 other running backs on the roster if they need to replace one of those guys. So they'll be all right there. Defensively, Miles is under contract for a while. John Johnson, he's going to be coming up for restructure probably this offseason, but he's not an integral piece of this defense. JOK is on a rookie deal. You just locked up Denzel Ward. You have Greg Newsome on the other side. I think people get stuck in old Cleveland Browns logic, which is we need to sign everybody who needs to start for this team in free agency in order to be decent. And that's just not the case anymore. You have most of this core locked up anyway. So like the cap space, yeah, it would be nice to have $100 million in cap space or whatever it is, but you don't need $100 million in cap space when you already have like 8 or 10 studs locked up under contract for the next few years. That cap space becomes more irrelevant the more you accumulate and lock up good players, because that's what you want to use it for. I think people are obsessed with having the most cap space for no reason. For no reason. Okay? You want to have enough cap space to keep the guys that you have developed on your roster and maybe sprinkle in a couple of free agent acquisitions. That's where the Browns are at. There's no reason to worry about the Browns cap space at all. And again, who do we have on this roster that Browns fans covet that is not under contract for the next couple of years? Maybe minus Kareem Hunt. Why are we freaking out about the David Njoku deal? I don't know. But that's just my thoughts on it. I know it's late, but I was out of town this weekend, so there was that. But y'all have a good one, and stop freaking out about David Njoku's money. It really ain't that big of a deal, y'all. Let that man let that man get his money that he wanted, and let the Browns pay him. It really wasn't a big deal. But that's my thoughts on that contract. Let me know what y'all think.